I'd come to Pondicherry looking for the last traces of French colonialism in India, only to find a newer and more peaceful invasion. This is the Coromandel coast of southeast India. Many of these people have come from different parts of the Western world to rediscover their spiritual selves through yoga and easy contact with tropical nature. They follow the teachings of a master who's called a guru, and collectively they constitute an ashram. There are 2 ashrams in Pondicherry, and this is the guru of the smaller of the 2, Swami Gitananda, a Sikh from Winnipeg. If the French had taken over India instead of the British, Pondicherry would probably now be a metropolis like Saigon. As it is, it reminded me of a small Mediterranean town, with its Catholic churches the most tangible results of French influence. Pondicherry was capital of France's handful of colonies in India, and for more than 250 years, the French maintained their precarious foothold until 1954, when they reluctantly ceded Pondicherry to India. This part of town is known as the Ville Noire, Black Town, so called by the French because most of the people here are the dark-skinned Tamils, the ancient inhabitants of southern India. It's a pity there's no way to convey the pungent stink of smoke, food and dung, which is forever in your nostrils. My wife finds it very daunting.
And I felt self-conscious and out of my depth.
She doesn't really have the soul of a Mem Saab.
It wasn't that I was afraid of the people. They're really very gentle.
Foreigners arouse good-natured curiosity wherever they go, especially if accompanied by a camera crew.
I look like minor royalty inspecting the native bazaar. You should follow Albert around. He gets much more out of Pondicherry than I do.
Oh, really?
I'm not very fat. There's nothing
Bye-bye, Nicholas. Bye-bye. Wow, look at Simple Simon there. Bye-bye, Simple Simon. Hey, you wish you didn't drop your cake.
Travelling by train is one of the best ways to see India. It's a modern way of making a medieval pilgrimage. People are very charming and open, and of course curious. A typical conversation would go like this. What is your name, please? Albert Jordan. What are you doing for a living? I'm a university professor. Oh, very good. And what is your annual salary?
See the harvesters gathering in the harvest over there, Dan?
I could never get them to understand why a professor of French at Sir George Williams University in Montreal would be taking a sabbatical leave in India. The fact was that it appealed to me, this remote outpost of French civilization in what was once British India.
Yeah, here, I'm coming to the station now, Pondicherry.
Arriving in Pondicherry station, I almost hoped to hear the Marseillaise being played as we came steaming in. They don't have much occasion to play these tunes of glory now. There's not much left of the French presence in Pondicherry. The usual patriotic paraphernalia, echoes of the imperial past, the war memorial to the quota of Pondicherrians killed in European wars, Christian burial for the French who left their bones and their faith here. Joseph François Dupleix, governor of Pondicherry. Poor Monsieur Dupleix. He had a blueprint for the conquest of India, which the French rejected and the British enthusiastically adopted. He was disgraced and died in poverty, forgotten by all, except the jubilant Indian nationalists who poured tar over him on Independence Day. Dupleix may have been left to vegetate in poverty, but not the several thousand French pensioners in Pondicherry. They draw what for that area is a princely sum. Most of them were in the French forces or civil service, either in Indochina or elsewhere in France's colonial empire. Even today, young Pondicherrians volunteer for the French army, returning to Pondicherry at the age of 35 to live in opulent retirement. Although they bring French habits back with them, and sometimes speak relatively good French, they usually stick closely to their Tamil way of life. The consequence is that many of them are heavily in debt to moneylenders, who will be waiting for them, along with the beggars, when they go to collect their pension from the French pay office. We lived in the more genteel Ville Blanche, or White Town, where most of the Westerners and wealthy Indians live.
This is All India Radio. The news, read by Melville de Mello. The Apollo 13 astronauts have jettisoned...
Rent was high at $30 a month.
And are now getting
Plumbing left something to be desired, but personal service was good.
Steel plants are to be set up at Salem, Hospet, and Visakhapatnam. Australia have a 2-love lead over Japan in the Davis Cup tie.
Busy as the honeybees, happy butterflies, all are clooney scholars from Pondicherry by the sea, and bring out the blissful hours, fruit of joyful harmony. It's faithful and true, and work and play. When God from on high, in His love guides our way, to be faithful and true, and be ever of Christ, and a link to a chain which will reach far and wide. To be faithful and true, and be ever.
In many ways, the Ville Blanche is ideal for families. Everything's on a human scale, and the sea 5 minutes away. Not much traffic either. In Pondicherry, the bike is king. The Grand Hotel. 5 rooms, French cooking, beer and wine, parties from dry Madras catered to. Proprietor E. Magri, born and bred in Pondicherry.
Un tout petit peu pour vous tenir compagnie.
After you, there'll be nobody to look after.
Well, this is the
Nobody
last.
at all.
This is the last French hotel. This is the last truly French hotel in Pondicherry. There's no other place.
And my business is quite different. There I not receive rush of people, you know.
No.
Few but good.
Yeah.
Yes, my principe.
Very choice, to be honest.
Oui, voilà, c'est tout. How we say in French, l'homme chic descend à l'hôtel d'Europe and the Hôtel d'Europe receive l'homme chic.
Yeah.
C'est beau ça.
Moi, je suis le dernier. Not easy for me, of course.
The Ville Blanche never seemed as animated as the Ville Noire. Probably because the Tamil townspeople don't really feel at home in this area reserved for wealthy foreigners. Foreigners not only from the West, but also from other parts of India. The majority of these foreigners come here for one thing only, the ashram of Sri Aurobindo. An ashram, strictly speaking, is a gathering of disciples with their guru. But this ashram has a 20th century style that sets it apart. I came every morning to participate in a popular ashram activity, gossiping outside the ashram post office and wondering how one became a seeker out of the divine harmony. The aim of the ashram, as I understood it, can be simply stated: harmony of the physical being with the inner spirit in divine unity. Every day, people come to the courtyard of the main ashram building, there to meditate before the tomb of Aurobindo. But today, April the 24th, is a special occasion. At 11 o'clock sharp, there is to be a mass meditation for all devotees. Aurobindo was a Bengali. Born in 1872, he was educated in England. When he went back to India as a young man, he joined the nationalist movement and soon found himself in trouble with the British. In 1910, Aurobindo fled from British India to Pondicherry, where the French gave him political asylum. The ashram bears witness to his attempts to bring about a synthesis between the East and the West. There are now thousands of followers, though Aurobindo once said, "I do not want hundreds of thousands of disciples. It will be enough if I can get 100 complete men, empty of petty egoism, who will be the instruments of God." Who, I wondered, are the instruments of God today at the ashram? Perhaps one of the practical men like Mr. Pinto. Trained as an aeronautical engineer, he came to the ashram in the 30s. Aurobindo called him Uda, meaning generous. I talked to him in the courtyard of one of the ashram guest houses. Uda has helped to build up many of the ashram's successful commercial enterprises. These shops, factories and restaurants may surprise the visitor to the ashram, who may have been expecting the Eastern tradition of poverty and austerity.
Tell me, Uda, would you say that this particular ashram is an exceptionally westernized institution?
It's not westernized, but it's the first time that an attempt has been made to synthesize the progress of the West, the material progress of the West, with the spiritual aspiration of India. And Sri Aurobindo has tried to synthesize the two because both are necessary for the growth of the individual. Surprising enough, it has also attracted a number of technical people like engineers and doctors, because the yoga of Sri Aurobindo is something which really appeals to the scientific mind. And here I find something very concrete and something that that really a spiritual life can be put in a form that is practical and that can show some practical approach, not just sitting around and meditating the whole day, but you can do some active, constructive work and at the same time progress.
The feeling for this progressive spirit is shared by Mr. Malik, one-time executive with Unilever.
What had really attracted me to this place was that Sri Aurobindo attached more importance to changing and transforming life rather than abandoning it. To me, what had always taken me away from the old yoga was their pleading for running away from life. Now here, Sri Aurobindo offered the answer to that. And he said, no, you don't withdraw, you don't run away, you live here, face the problems, and bring that supramental force down into yourself to change your physical nature.
When Aurobindo died in 1950, his place was taken by a French lady, known as the Mother, who is regarded by many as being the incarnation of the divine. Her appearances 4 times a year draw large crowds, and today's special occasion is the 50th anniversary of her arrival in Pondicherry. Now 93 years old, she still dominates the ashram with her powerful personality. "93. Some people believe she will never die."
And she's really divine. I have no doubt. I didn't believe it. First time she was a funny old lady for me, but she's really divine. And if you see her, you can't avoid feeling it. And I mean, the divine is beautiful.
And I think without her understanding and forbearance, very few of us would be able to go on for long. And she constantly bucks us up also, because this yoga is a very difficult job. It is like swimming upstream. And without her help, it would be almost impossible.
I think that everything that we have to do here is for the sake of the divine and for the sake of the mother.
She was born in Paris in 1878. When she arrived in Pondicherry in 1920, she was already a follower of Aurobindo. As a little girl, spiritual and psychic experiences had revealed to her the existence of God. In 1926, when Aurobindo retired into solitude, the ashram first came under her guidance. Nowhere is the mother more revered than at Auroville. Auroville, one of Mother's favorite projects, is now being built on the outskirts of Pondicherry. It is to be a city where the inhabitants can lead a life of harmony, a kind of spiritual utopia. But I wondered, is it because utopia is a Western concept that there are so few Indians at Auroville? The Auroville pioneers are mainly Westerners. Most of the Indians around here are the local Tamil villagers who are more concerned with land values than the spiritual preoccupations of exotic Westerners.
Naturally, the people who are applying to stay in Auroville or to work for Auroville are of different temperaments and represent a large variety of consciousness. Some see clearly in Auroville an opportunity to perfect their special vocation. Some are applying because they see in Auroville an opportunity to work for human unity, working out a new way of life. Some are applying because Auroville answers to their spirit of adventure, spirit of finding something new, a field of expressing something new.
Moreover, Auroville is the next step after the ashram for trying to put into practice the teachings of Sri Aurobindo. That's quite a link in the spirit.
I came in contact with this spirit in a bookshop. I saw a picture of Sri Aurobindo and this was enough. Then we decided to come in contact with this spirit. And this contact was very good. And then we left Germany and now we are here.
I'm working in a small hospital we have for the villagers. And we dispense free medicine and distribute milk to the children and wheat.
After they come here, their vision becomes more clear, more integrated, and they know what exactly has to be done and how it has to be done.
We are working on an art project. We want to work for the formula of a world culture.
We are going to expand this first community by building much more huts so that these can grow up to 100, 200 persons very fast. And we are going to build a number of workshops of handicraft center to work in connection with the Tamil village, which is just behind this setup.
Sri Aurobindo said that work was the best prayer that the body could offer.
Yes.
When one does work in a country where one has to depend upon money as a living and has to sort of fight to keep oneself going, one tends to work merely as a means of surviving, and so therefore it becomes not a pleasure but an obligation.
And because work is not an obligation here, but a pleasure, there are no wages. All are welcome to come and put their hand to the plough, provided they bring enough money with them to keep themselves for a year. after which period the ashram will ensure a subsistence level. But from what I gathered, most people seem to have some little nest egg to fall back on. Savings, pensions, private incomes, money from parents at home. Gerard from Switzerland has been here for 18 years. He manages the orchard which supplies the ashram and Auroville kitchens and sells the surplus. They have made the place productive despite the shortage of water.
No, there is plenty of water here, but there is no money to develop the water resources. There's an average annual rainfall here of 49 inches, most of which flows into the sea unused. The project I'm working on now is to build 22 percolation dams to conserve the now wasted monsoon rainwater. And this project should cost about $66,000. And somebody in the United States sent us $3,000 to build one dam, and one dam has just been completed.
Janet Fern came to Auroville from St. John's, Newfoundland. I wondered what her friends and relatives would think, seeing Janet in the trim little house she's built for herself, tending her garden, raising money for her water conservation projects. She's the first Canadian woman to settle in Auroville. It's a far cry from the Maritimes. Well, Auroville may have been home to Janet, but it wasn't to Jacques and Maria Bouma. I found them ready to quit after about 4 months there. When they'd heard about Auroville in Holland, it had seemed then the realization of all their ideals. They sold everything and sailed to India in rapid disillusion.
When we awoke the first morning at 5 o'clock and we found ourselves in the midst of this village with its noises, children crying, women shouting and so on, which we had not expected at all. And then all of a sudden it struck you, this is going to be your life for the next of your time, which was rather hard. That was the first thing. And then all these small things, they amounted to really a mountain of deception, so to say. So I won't disencourage anybody to come and try, but they should be prepared for some hard moments, especially in the beginning.
They returned to cool, clean, predictable, quiet Holland. Some people at the ashram were a little nervous about my talking to Freddie Bushnell. He is a devotee, but I wondered if he could be considered typical of the ashram, with his well-to-do, proper Bostonian background and his lush little island, presented to him by the mother. On this island, developed and beautified by his own hand, Freddie displays his enthusiasm for ancient Greece.
As you can see, this is Athena, but this is not a return of paganism. This is symbolic of something, an inner aspiration. Otherwise, how could I keep the balance? For me, personally. Yeah. There we are. There are lights here. It's like a Greek icon. It's symbolic as a stepping stone to the near future. Mind you, this is symbolic. This is not a cult or a religion or trying to bring back pagan gods, but it's for beauty. You know, 3 years ago, during the terrible flood, gentlemen, there was no land here whatsoever. This was all, the land was taken away from my island and was thrown over like this. The whole island was undulated. That's a damn good shot, really. That's a damn good shot. Eventually, I'm going to build a tower here. My French-Canadian friends told me, they said, you can't build on this structure. I will either have to build it here or build it up like a fire tower. I want to go way up, 60 feet.
Well, you know, as a result of the fact that of not only the study and practice of yoga, but of an intense examination of Jung, I mean, I have been fascinated by his development of the two attitudes, the introverted attitude towards life and the extroverted attitude. For example, I'm an extrovert, and I have had tremendous difficulties in India because the yogi has been identified with introversion. And after years of trying to force myself to being an introvert, I realized that there could be a realization in the extroverted sense, organizationally, administratively, scientifically.
Austin Delaney from Vancouver, once a paratroop officer, union organizer, advertising man, character in a novel.
And in my encounter with McLuhan's work, I came to realize that he was, even if he doesn't know it himself, in the extroverted sense, in seeing what the media are, in seeing their application in terms of a transformation of man's consciousness, of an extension of his consciousness, in terms of the whole of the machineries of joy, if you like, as he might well call them, as Bradbury calls them, that we do have man there who has realized the truth of the universe as it marches towards him. Whereas the traditional Indian yogi sees the truth of the microcosm as it rises within him. Now, when we have an extroverted yogi and an introverted yogi combined in one person, then we have the integral man. Then we have the new man. But the conditions for a collective transformation at the level of depth, a soul transformation, exist where the whole new, as it were, central nervous system of the mass media are being developed. So that there is an instantaneous communication, as it were, of information, an accumulation of the requirements for a new collective consciousness. And in the smaller countries, perhaps Switzerland and Canada, I feel that we may see the development of an entirely new way of living. I speak now not necessarily politically, but in the way we view life and look at life, the way we, if you like, love each other and learn to love ourselves. I actually returned to Canada in '67 for Expo and to see my family after a 20 years absence. And I moved throughout the whole country from Montreal right through to Vancouver in a constant state of exhilaration and inspiration. For I intuited, against the evidence indeed of most of my liberal and socialist and critical friends, who themselves were in despair about the North American way of life, I intuited a movement deep in the psyche, if you like, of Canada, in the collective consciousness of the northern part of North America, indeed, which promises that will be the center, the nest and the matrix of the spiritual revolution which is here been announced by Sri Aurobindo and the great yogis. It is this that I saw from Expo right through, and particularly, I might say, in Expo, which seemed to me in terms of this yoga to be a descent of the divine right into Montreal. I was enchanted by it. I loved it. It was a spiritual experience after 20 years being away.
Austin's visionary eloquence is very inspiring. It makes us forget the unchanging mud huts of the nearby Tamil villagers who've seen empires come and go. They remain largely unimpressed by the flurry of activity on the site of Auroville. But beyond the modest beginning lies a grander design.
Pour moi, Auroville représentait une idée absolument utopique.
The chief architect and one of the main promoters of Auroville is Roger Anger, a Parisian, related to the mother by marriage. Commuting between Paris and Pondicherry, he is supervising the first tentative steps. A city of 50,000 inhabitants of all races, Auroville will be the ultimate expression of urban technology. Doomed to fail, I thought, like all utopian experiments. But no, I was told, the aspirations of Auroville are not utopian. They are not social, political, or materialistic. They are spiritual. Each citizen will be motivated by the teachings of Sri Aurobindo and the Mother.
Cette partie ici à la zone de l'Union.
It's amazing what happens when that sun goes down. You know,
I'm sorry you didn't catch a real sunset, though.
No, the sun is under the cloud, and it's going to come down.
Mother has said, name this place as peace.
This whole
And
area.
to absorb the peace, Mother has said, if you could be silent, you can feel the peace solidly descending on you. It's very small.
The American ambassador to UNESCO.
Before all these things, when I used to come here, I think I've told you about it, that two spirits used to appear every night at 12 o'clock, riding on the horse and carrying on the battle. The clash of the soul at night.
That's what I mean. It would appear to you?
Yes. So I informed the mother. After the mother was informed, the battle has ceased.
There is a steady trickle of VIPs as efforts are made to interest world organizations in the Auroville project.
That's beginning. Now it's just pioneer stage. How do we do, huh? Well, there's a wonderful proverb.
The ambassador's visit was associated with hopes that a world university might be built at Auroville. The world game is already a reality in Austin Delaney's complex of tree forts on the seashore.
We're attempting here in our tree houses on the beach to develop a center in which children play and learn. And we are given such freedom from the structure of a state educational system that we may be given just enough freedom to develop some new and fresh ideas. And the central aspect of my particular work is I learned in Zurich while studying child psychology with Jungian psychologists while attending the Jung Institute a couple of years ago. And there I worked with a child psychologist called Dora Kauf, who has developed what she calls a world game, a play with toys in a small rectangular sandbox, in which the fantasy of the child is given hundreds or thousands of toys, every type of numinous and symbolic object. And the child, in playing in the box, can make statements about its life, about parents, family situation, which are beyond the verbal capacity even of an adult. And that a child, or throughout his whole educational process, could go, make a box, have it photographed, and he could go back and trace, as it were, his entire psychic autobiography. These objects, the kids, of course, constantly use, the airplanes, as an indication of a spiritual problem, something that flies. The shells, of course, the shells are a vessel and are traditionally, almost always associated with the feminine power. It's surprising how often the children will use skulls. And on the face of it, it's rather a negative aspect of the work. But always, too, it indicates a rebirth, a death and a rebirth. So one can look, whenever a child uses this, for something new emerging in his life. A toy like this will suggest, balance. And a child will often use it. Well, I've often been asked, why do you keep this for children's toys? It's ugly. But, of course, the child has a very vivid understanding of the monster. The monster, which represents some power of devouring power or difficulty in his life. And he will use, the teeth to bite a doll or to bite a toy, of coming out of the teeth coming out of the earth, that devouring aspect of the parental image, which we know so much about. Similarly, I have been questioned sometimes about using these demonic figures, or bones. we have one child here, who spoke, of everything is a desert here. There is no water, And one animal, a stork, is coming in, looking for water, And finally over in one corner, and she dug a hole to get to the blue at the bottom, It finds water, We simply paid more attention to her when we saw through the boxes, that she had a problem beyond the mere problem of a tiff with her mummy, You know, one of the children wrote to Mother and said, "Mother, is it true that you are divine?" And she replied, "Only in the sense, my child, that you too are divine." I want to exuberantly express the joy that Mother brings me. And in that enthusiastic and exuberant expression, I am being called a person, who is still in the ego, who has no quietude, who has no harmony, who has no inner silence. And while all these things are necessary, we must also shout hurrah when we realize we're divine. And I love to shout it.
India tolerates and recognizes the divine in all its forms. These are Dijis, or transvestites. They're an ancient sect, an ancient sex, one might even say, professional attendants at Hindu religious festivals that have been going on in much the same way for the last 1,000 years. The crowd amuses itself patiently as it awaits the erection of a giant figure of stern-faced Shiva. The big event of the day is when the god Shiva is finally mounted on the temple cart and pulled in procession around the village. How self-contained these people are. The French, the ashram, Auroville, people like Austin and myself make very little impression on this teeming ancient world. I'm the exotic, outlandish element in all this scene, as others will find themselves to be when they make the India trip.
You are man and woman, boy and girl, man and woman, boy and girl. Old and worn, you walk bent over a staff, bent over a staff. You are the bluebird and the green and the scarlet-eyed. You are the bluebird and the green and the scarlet-eyed.